everyone, I'm Steven Sigman.
I'm Mike Messinio.
And this is the weekly movie throwdown, where each week we look at two films that belong in the same conversation, have a little something in common, and we talk through which one is the better film. Today, we're matching up two stories of high school longing. The first is from 1998. It's Can't Hardly Wait, directed by Harry Elfon and Deborah Kaplan. And the second is from 2009, I Love You, Beth Cooper, directed by Chris Columbus. But before we get into that conversation, let's discuss our wins of the week. These are things that we saw or heard or read this week, just in general, that we want to share with you. So, Mike, what are your wins of the week?
Yeah, I have a couple of wins of the week this week. So I watched a few movies. And I watched The Mastermind, which is a movie about it's a movie about the art heist. It's got Josh O'Connell. Josh O'Connell? Is that his name? Yeah.
Josh O'Connor?
Josh O'Connor. There you go. So yeah, so I watched The Mastermind with Josh O'Connor this week. And I also watched Train Dreams. And I think these movies are kind of connected because they're slow moving movies about two men's lives, so to speak. But The Mastermind, to be perfectly honest, I think maybe it's because I'm exhausted with self-entitled sociopaths that I just had no real interest in The Mastermind. I found it to be, I didn't necessarily love it. I actually thought it was incredibly slow moving, and realized I didn't particularly care about this person, which is why maybe I had a problem with it. But Train Dreams, I really, really enjoyed. It's very simplistic. It's a very simple story, but there was just something beautiful about it. I don't know why. And I think it's a good example how slow moving doesn't always mean boring and what the difference is. Because I found The Mastermind to be kind of boring, and I found Train Dreams to be incredibly engaging. So that's just my opinion. So my win of the week was probably Train Dreams over The Mastermind.
Okay. Well, let me just say that the Mastermind is directed by Kelly Reichardt. She's one of my favorite directors, and that pace is kind of her thing. Everything is very slow and very deliberate, and maybe not necessarily for everybody, but most of her films are like that.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, I have no issues with methodical pacing. It just depends. I said in this case, I just didn't find this character engaging enough to kind of stay within this story. And I said, maybe it's just me that I'm exhausted with that particular kind of character, that I'm just sick of it. It's just where I'm coming from at this moment, and I'm willing to cop to that. So, I mean, but at the same time, it's not like it wasn't a sure-handed, well-made movie, because it was. It just didn't grab me. But the other movie I saw this week, which is a win for me, was I watched The Wrecking Crew, which is that Amazon movie with Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa. And I have to say, I had no thoughts about this movie. I didn't even know it was coming out until like 2 weeks ago. And, but it was on, and I decided to watch it. It was a lot of fun. I am shocked at how much I enjoyed it, because the Amazon movies are definitely hit or miss in a major way, mostly miss. This one, I'm not even sure why it didn't get a theatrical release, because it probably deserved it. Taking away some of the CGI stuff, which every movie has, which is a bit much, it feels so much like a fun 80s throwback movie, just like a hard-boiled story with these two guys, kicking ass, and a lot of they have really good chemistry together. There's a lot of good banter between the two of them. Very straightforward story, but they both get to do the tough guy things that they want to do. But it really works. I think the two of them are really good together. And I have to say that after watching Parker, which was directed by Shane Black, which I expected so much more from, it almost makes me think this is the kind of movie that I would have thought Shane Black would be making, but he didn't make it. Like, that's how much I enjoyed it, that I felt like this feels like a Shane Black movie to me. It was a good time.
Get the depths of you from these prestige award contenders to Amazon.
Hey, I contain multitudes. So I watched 2 teen rom-coms, 2 methodical movies about men aging, and then I watched Wrecking Crew. Come on, I'm all over the place.
It's quite impressive, and I think that's why the show works so well.
But yeah, Wrecking Crew, man, I'm telling you, you would like this movie. You should watch it. It's fun.
I'll watch it. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch it. I didn't know about it either. I'd seen the title, And the only Wrecking Crew I know is like that group of musicians who worked with like Elvis and all these other
Also
people.
a great movie. That's a great documentary and a good
Yeah,
book too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You could watch both Wrecking Crews on the same day. Watch them back to back.
Two very different experiences.
Yeah, one is about a group of musicians killing it in the studio, and another is about two guys killing it everywhere else. So there you
Right. That's a lot of killing.
go.
Uh, my wins of the week. The first one is a wacky movie called Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die.
Yeah,
This,
it's coming out in a couple of weeks, and I was going to ask you if it was worth seeing. So because that's Sam Rockwell in it. Go ahead.
yeah, it was the AMC secret movie on Monday. So it was a lot of fun to see with a big audience too, and they were really into it. This is directed by Gore Verbinski, who has directed things like The Ring and Pirates of the Caribbean, Rango, sadly The Lone Ranger. But he is pretty great overall, I think, as a director. Very fun and very kind of big. And uh, the star Sam Rockwell, who comes back in time, kind of like Kyle Reese from the Terminator. His mission is to basically intercept AI. And there is a little boy who's working in a house who basically is taking present day AI and just like upping it to a new level. And Sam Rockwell has to get there before this kid ups it to a new level to install this software that is kind of a safeguard so that it prevents AI from turning reality into like a hellscape in the future. And when he lands in the present day, he lands at Norm's, very famous diner in Los Angeles. And there's a configuration of people in there who are the right configuration to help him on this mission. So the people he brings along with him are Juno Temple, Haley Lou Richardson, Michael Pena, Zazie Beetz, and it's a dark comedy with like a really fun tone. uh I think the end, like the third act, kind of falls apart a little bit, but it's still very fun. I think Sam Rockwell is just sensational in this role. He's really, really good, and everybody just seems to be having a lot of fun making this kind of wacky technology movie. There are a lot of technology movies that I've seen lately talking about how
Mm,
technology is bad. I'm not going to get into all of them, but that's kind of a theme I've been seeing. um the other win I have is Send Help, which is kind of anti-technology. This is the new film from Sam Raimi, and it's kind of like his take on Misery meets Castaway, I guess. It follows this character, Linda Little, who is just like really good at her job, and this corporate hierarchy is in line for a raise, but the head of the company dies and his son is put in place and she's denied that raise. And they do a great job of kind of like making Rachel McAdams be a little frumpy, and she's real, like she really gets the assignment in this film. It's a Sam Raimi film, so it's very over the top. They kind of make her a little bit like Gloria in White Men Can't Jump, in that she's desperate to be on Survivor, whereas Gloria was like studying to be on Jeopardy in that film.
right.
Linda never gets the call, but she gets to take all of the things she learned and apply them when a plane crashes and the only two survivors are her and this boss. So out on this remote island, it's really like a dynamic shift, and it has all the cool things that you would want from a Sam Raimi film, like pretty interesting camera angles, like a lot of sort of funny gore and monsters. And it also has sort of a moral ambiguity where he kind of reels you in a lot of the time with somebody you want to root for, and then they sort of make moral choices and you wonder if you should still root for them. He does that in Drag Me to Hell. He does that in A Simple Plan. It's kind of one of his things. And it's just it's just really, really fun. And it's it won me over for Rachel McAdams. I mean, we've talked
Wow.
in the
Okay.
past about how I find her like middle of the road. I don't really, I don't really notice her. And that's kind of the thing, is like she gets an opportunity here to be front and center in basically a two-hander where there are no other characters. And she just knocks it out of the park. It's really, really fun. and I see that it's doing pretty well at the box office already this weekend. So it's a win all around this week. I highly recommend going to see it. I don't know if you want to take kids to see it because it's a little gory, but
Probably not. But yeah, that's
yeah.
actually good. I'm glad you mentioned both of those movies. They were both on my radar, and I'm trying to figure out which movies I'm going to go see in the theater this month. Uh, Good to know.
Yeah, highly recommend both. All right. Well, then those are our wins of the week. Let's get into our matchup for this week. Can't Hardly Wait versus I Love You, Beth Cooper. Why this pairing? You mentioned I Love You, Beth Cooper.
I
So
did, and I have a theory. So
yeah,
I would love to share my theory. So I
yeah. Let's
think
hear it.
that what we're seeing is they can't hardly wait is kind of the beginning of a resurgence of the teen rom com. This is 1998, and there really weren't a lot of, other than Clueless, there weren't a ton of teen rom coms in the 90s.
Yeah.
And that's why there's so many people in this movie that you recognize, because every teen actor in Hollywood tried to audition for this movie because there were so few of them at the time. So you have this, and the year after this movie comes out, American Pie comes out, and things just kind of explode. So you end up with just a run of classic. I mean, classic is in the eye of the beholder, but well-known movies in this genre. I mean, you get She's All That, 10 Things I Hate About You. The list goes on and on. I'm not going to list all the movies, but you get this classic run of the resurgence of the teen rom com. And my theory is that I Love You, Beth Cooper is essentially the end of that run. I Love You, Beth Cooper comes out in like 2009. And if you look from that point on, there's so few of these kinds of movies that are even being made, or especially being made by big studios. I know, don't send letters or anything. There's a lot of actually really nice movies that have come out since then. Dope is a good one. Edge of 17 is really good, but very few being released by studios. And so I think that you had this period of time that Can't Hardly Wait started, and I Love You, Beth Cooper, for all intents and purposes, basically ended. And that's why, in my mind, they pair together, besides the fact that they're similar in that they both take place kind of in one day. It's the day of graduation, leads to some hijinks. The longing for the girl, that all that stuff fits into.
So you're saying that I Love You, Beth Cooper is the Days of Thunder of 2000s rom coms,
Yeah, we
teenage
2 weeks
comedies.
in a row we've kind of hit on movies that basically ended a run of movies. So yeah, that's my theory.
What I like about this pairing is that they're both protagonists I can relate to as someone who was not very popular in high school and who longed for people all the time. But I also like that they both start on graduation day. And what I find interesting is Can't Hardly Wait is kind of like the lead up to this profession of love, whereas I Love You, Beth Cooper is sort of the aftermath of that, where the protagonist like tells this person they're longing for how they feel about them. And I just kind of love that it's almost like a prequel and a sequel to, that moment. And I think that's kind of interesting to look at it that way. So they have a lot in common, but they also have quite a few differences that we're going to talk about.
Quality probably being one of them, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, it's we'll get there. It's hard to really overlook how bad one of these films is, but we'll
So
start with
here's a thought though, which I just wanted to
Mhm.
share. Do you think that Can't Hardly Wait works better because it's actually an ensemble, and what you have is that main story, but you have all these other stories going on around it, which kind of, so you're not fully focused on just two people or three people. Whereas I Love You, Beth Cooper almost suffers a bit from the whole movie essentially being the pairing of these two people without a ton to distract from it.
Yeah, I think the writing has a lot to do with it and the setup. And I mean, we'll get into that when we compare them. They're definitely two different takes on this story. And I think one works better than the other. And it has just much better writing. That's like one of the elements that I think is, is better among many, but let's start with Can't Hardly Wait. just a kind of an overview of it is that it's the end of senior year, and every clique of kids ends up at this classmate's house for a graduation party. It's the nerds, it's the jocks, it's everybody you can imagine, basically the whole class. And the protagonist of the film is Preston, played by Ethan Embry. He's a writer, he's a creative. He's very much me when I was in high school and probably to this day. And he hopes to express his love to Amanda, who is someone he encountered in ninth grade and has harbored these feelings for ever since. He's on his way out, leaving the next day, so he's going to tell her how he feels. There's also the nerdy William, who hatches a plan to pay back the football star Mike, who's been just basically bullying him for all of high school. And there's would-be rapper Kenny, played by Seth Green, who gets locked into a room with Denise, who's a very cynical, kind of grounded character played by Lauren Ambrose. And I just think it's a lot of fun. And we're going to talk about how, I mean, you kind of mentioned, Clueless and She's All That, and it really just kind of starting that things. I'm excited to dig into the things that kind of make it the beginning of that, because I think a lot of the films that come after it sort of use this as a starting point and
Yeah.
adjust. Yeah.
There's just two things I wanted it to get out of the way real quick. To say that in our minds, this kind of starts this run of movies. What I didn't realize is that Scream had a lot to do with the resurgence of the teen movie, because Scream did so well that it kind of made the studios sit up and realize that there was an audience that they could go after. What's strange though, and we discussed this in a previous pod way back in the day, The Big Bounce, which was an awful movie. And what we realized is that it was going to be a rated R movie, and they cut it. They made it a PG-13 movie, and it suffered immeasurably by trying to cut it to PG-13. Can't Hardly Wait actually suffered in a similar way. It's not a terrible movie, but because at this time they didn't want to show any depictions of teen drinking, and there was language that they had to cut out. So there's a lot of things they had to do, scenes they had to actually cut, and they had to add a weird CGI thing at some point in the movie as well, just so they couldn't actually show kids drinking. And if you go back and watch the movie, you'll notice this. And it actually, the pacing of the movie kind of suffers because there's these weird cuts that happen for that reason. And again, we discussed this with The Big Bounce. It's insane because Scream was rated R and was hugely successful. And then a year later, American Pie, also rated R, becomes one of the most successful movies of the year. And it's just the studios not understanding the audience they're trying to reach. I don't know what you're doing, but in some ways, Can't Hardly Wait suffers from that. And it's funny because when you watch I Love You, Beth Cooper a decade later, there's kids drinking all over the place in that movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've gotten past it. But yeah, when Can't Hardly Wait was made, they were still trying to follow these standards that no one really cared about. And in some ways, the movie suffers a little from it.
It's really interesting. I don't know how you have a party movie where kids aren't drinking.
Yeah, go back and look, and you'll notice there's like a scene where Mike and
William?
where Mike and William clink glasses, and then there's just like a cut to them putting them down because they couldn't show them actually taking those drinks. That's really like glaring example. But yeah, it's something.
I guess, I mean, the R rating for the things around it, it's those things aren't rated R for drinking. I mean, maybe that's something that's like a legal, it's like a line, you can't show kids participating in illegal acts.
I don't know. It may have evolved from them, but at the time, yeah, according to the filmmakers, they said that the drinking was part of the reason they would have gotten an R rating and some language that they had to cut out.
That's like the main thing that kids do.
Yeah, pretty crazy, right?
Wow, why would you cut that out?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's America's prudish like that.
Yeah, and notice Amanda is at the party drinking water because right.
She's even at that party, honestly, but we'll get into that. Yeah. So both of these films unfold over a single night, and we mentioned before that this has an ensemble, and I think what's interesting is like the structure of it with all of these different characters which are fairly well written, I think, with a little bit of depth. I think the focus is these 5 or 6 main characters, and the more you zoom out, the little fuzzier kind of the characters get, but I think they all have something to them, and I think that's kind of what drew me into it. I really didn't watch this, for a while. Like, I had seen this before, but it's been a while since I saw it, is what I'm trying to say, and I'd kind of forgotten how much I liked it, and I think the story and the structure of it really appeals to me, so that's why I kind of got invested in it. Um, and I also like that, you know, it has some pretty good themes in it of, like, professing love and maybe finding out that someone isn't what they're perceived as. I think Amanda's like that. I think actually Preston's kinda like that. Basically, everybody in Can't Hardly Wait is somebody else than how we think they are. That's probably not the case as much in Beth Cooper. Maybe Beth is kind of the only one who we really see as somebody who is different than she's imagined to be. So, I don't know, but I think this structure and the way the writer directors handle it makes it very appealing, even for someone who's middle aged like me. I kind of had a lot of fun watching it and sort of going back to that. There's a lot of nostalgia to it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of relatability. You can find at least one character to relate to. And again, I think that's why the ensemble works better than focusing on just a couple of characters, because you can kind of find something for yourself within it, within the multitude of characters in the movie. I think that helps. I also think it helps to have really engaging actors. So you have a bunch of young actors kind of emerging from this, and they're all this movie is kind of a springboard for a lot of them. Jennifer Love Hewitt at the time is probably the biggest star because she was in Party of Five. But everyone else, and there's so many recognizable faces in it. What I love, and you mentioned that it gets fuzzier as you kind of get move out from the main characters. But what I also really liked is there were these recurring things that keep happening in the background of the movie. Like
Mhm.
there's the kid that keeps stealing things,
Yeah.
and then there's the couple that's kissing throughout the whole movie, where they even show up at the diner at the end. They're on these little threads of like these things that you see throughout the movie, which I think is a lot of fun as well. It shows you that they're really thinking cohesively about the entire project and how it fits together. The other thing that I mentioned about the drinking stuff is a lot of this movie, not a lot of it, but there were quite a few scenes that were filmed in long takes as well, like following characters walking through the party, bumping into another character. They connect a little bit more. But a lot of those scenes were cut because there's drinking in those long shots that they had to actually cut. So it seems like it's disjointed, but they were actually longer takes of a lot of these scenes. So, just saying again that there's a couple of things that suffer because of the cuts they had to make to the movie. But I do think that, again, there's just enough characters that are fun to follow that it still works. Although I will admit, I didn't quite love this movie as much watching it now as I did back in the day. And I have one serious problem with it, which we can we can get into now or later. It's fine. But I had one issue that really bugged me about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the kind of, like, weaknesses of it when we get there, but, um, yeah, that's interesting. God, it's so prudish. I mean, you're sacrificing what's probably a better film for drinking. Like,
I think so. Yeah.
God, that's so well, I'm gonna talk about later on why I think the things around the Beth Cooper time sort of have a little more of an edge to them. So when we get there, we'll get there. But yeah, in this time, it really like sex is okay because American Pie is is all about that, and violence is okay because Scream the year before is about teenagers getting murdered. So it's just that drinking, man. Like can't do it. Can't do it on screen. That's crazy. You talked about Jennifer Love Hewitt, so the performances really make this film for me, and Ethan Embry at the center again, kind of an everyman. He's very like jovial. He seems to be just kind of a nice guy, and I think that's sort of why I related to him a bit. He's really kind of in the middle of a heater here with these teen movies aren't getting made as much as they will down the road, but before this, there's Empire Records and That Thing You Do, and, I'll give it up for Vegas Vacation. That's a terrible movie, but he's sort of, like, prominent in it and does a good job. And then after this, there's Disturbing Behavior, so he's really sort of shining in this moment. Are you a fan of his?
Well, I think we've discussed how much I love That Thing You Do, so I kinda have a love for all the people in that movie, so for that reason, the rest of it, Empire Records was okay. But yeah, I do think that he is really strong on this movie as playing kind of an everyman. I think, what I found out is he's not much like the character he plays in this movie at all, which goes to show what a good actor he is. Apparently, according to him, he was basically stoned the entire time he was making this movie. So,
Really?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And a nice little anecdote, which I found really funny, the ending scene where they kiss in the train station, the day before it, Jennifer Love Hewitt, because she knows that he smoked all the time, she left a little package with breath mints in it and his trailer, basically indicating to him that his breath needed to be better if they were going to kiss, which I think is really funny.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Wow, so he's
And he
a
took it
he's a
as he
stoner.
took it constructively. He was like, "That's fair," and he took like 10 of them, and it worked out well.
Yeah, he really seems to be kind of locked into this persona during this time, but in things I'd see later, even Christie last year, he wasn't really that character, so I think it's nice to see that he's a little more versatile than he was almost typecast during this time,
Yeah,
I
isn't that
think.
funny that I think he was into something that I really again don't think matches his how he really presents. That's why I think you see him getting darker roles as the years go on, which probably fits the what he wanted to be doing.
Yeah, I kind of like dark Ethan Embry, it makes me feel like because I related to him so much during this period, that maybe I have a little darker side that I need to tap into, and there's hope for me. But, you mentioned Jennifer Love Hewitt, so she's definitely worth talking about for a few minutes. Started on Kids Incorporated, which I either didn't know or forgot. Did you see that show?
I did not watch that show, but did you watch Party of Five? Because I was a huge Party of Five watcher, and that's obviously where I
No,
knew her from.
I
Uh,
didn't, and I wanted to ask, like, how she is on that show because that's another ensemble, and I just in this, she doesn't necessarily have a lot to do. So, I don't really get a sense of, like, how she is as an actress in this, and the things she would kind of do around this, like the I Know What You Did Last Summer film, uh, also ensembles. So I'm not really getting to see her do what she does. So how was she on Party of Five? Was she really solid as an actor?
yeah, so Party of Five is such a weird show to talk about because I feel like it was so important in the moment that it was out, and I mean, when you think about the main cast, it's pretty crazy. I mean, all of them end up going on to bigger and better things. I mean, you have Scott Wolf and Nev Campbell's obviously in it, and Lacey Chabert is the younger sister, and it's those the main 5, 6 people in the show go on to do huge things, but that show was so depressing. I mean, my
Yeah.
God, it was so. It's almost impossible to imagine that show was even made or would be made now. But it's like every week people are in hysterics, and Jennifer Love Hewitt is basically crying all the time. It's just a sad, it's a sad, sad show, but
Man,
was
party
so
in the title is really
enjoyable.
misleading.
Yeah, it involves these kids whose parents die in a car crash, and and how the siblings kind of the older siblings old enough to kind of take care of them after that, and it's just about the dynamic of them living in the shadow of this horrible tragedy that happened. Jennifer Love Hewitt plays the girlfriend of one of the kids, played by Scott Wolf, and there's all these dynamics to go with that. I don't remember the show that well. It's been a very long time, but I remember the beats of it. But I just remember it's like someone was crying every episode. It was really, really sad. And I guess I was just in my teens, I was into that morose navel gazing sadness. So I really liked that show at the time.
Wow. Is Fox maybe responsible for this like wave of teenage movies that come out?
Yeah, it has to be said. I mean, their casting was obviously fantastic. I mean, they were really good at casting these shows because if you look at the star, a lot of stars came out of those Fox shows from the 90s.
Yeah, and a lot of stars who would go well, people who would go on to be stars are in this film. I mean, there's like a wildly deep bench in this film that we'll talk
Yeah.
about, but,
But going back to Jennifer Love
Jennifer
Hewitt
Lo
real quick,
yeah.
her. her entire career is kind of fraught with like some weird sexualization that happened with her and all kinds of stuff. Like I guess I never really thought about it. Now looking back on it, it's all pretty gross. But I always thought she was just a really engaging actor. I mean, some people have slagged on her acting ability. I never really had that issue with it. I just think that she was an engaging screen presence, and I think that I mean anyone that could cry on cue as much as she did in Party of Five has to have some talent. But yeah, I've always kind of liked her work, and I thought she was a really solid teen actor for all of those years.
She really kind of like in the 2000s, the first thing I remember her in that's kind of like a meaty role other than the ensemble stuff is Heartbreakers with Sigourney Weaver and Gene
You
Hackman.
know, it's funny you mentioned that because I was about to mention the same movie. I think that that was such a wonderful role for her because of all the stuff that had happened to her previously. It allowed her to play off of this image people had cultivated of her and poke fun at the idea of her as a sex symbol. So you had that part of it, but then it also got to show that she was actually very funny and a good actress. And going toe to toe with like Gene Hackman and Sigourney Weaver and
Yeah.
watching her more than hold her own, I think that that's a pretty important part in the trajectory of her career.
I'll never forget. I don't remember what I was seeing, but this came out early 2000s and I was living in Seattle and I'd come out of a movie and in the lobby were some of those like test things where they would show you a trailer and get a response, you know? So this was the first time I had seen something that was like, "Hey, we want your opinion and you're gonna help to formulate how this moves forward." So they stopped me and I watched the trailer and I gave my feedback for Heartbreakers and I was like, "Man, this is so cool." I'm really just getting a chance to help shape what this movie becomes. And
Wow.
it was a
You
very
know, the
exciting
first one,
moment.
I can actually remember the first time that happened to me. I was in a mall. I was with my brother, and these random people pulled us aside and they showed us the trailer for the movie Johnny Handsome with Mickey Rourke. So this is like the late 80s, I think. And I remember that. That was the movie that they showed us the trailer for.
Do you remember what your thoughts were on it at the time?
They weren't much. I don't think I thought much of that, the trailer of that movie.
That's kind of like peak Rourke though, isn't it? I
Yeah, but
mean,
even the fact that they pulled us aside, I think I was like 12 years old. Like, why would they think that I would have a good opinion about Johnny Handsome? I'm not even sure what they
yeah.
were thinking, but it was fine.
What is the 12-year-old's thoughts on Mickey Rourke? He's terrifying. Yeah, that's really interesting. Uh, just continuing on with the cast in this Seth Green, very, very prominent at the time. He's in a run on Buffy while this is being made as Oz. I had one question. I turned this on last night. Hadn't seen it in a long time. I knew what his character was. I remember his character being problematic in the 90s when I watched this. And in 2026, it is incredibly problematic. But what I realized is that there's no way he didn't base this character on Gary Oldman's character Drexel from True Romance. I went back and watched that, and it's like the same guy. So, I mean, props to Seth Green if that's the research he did and pulled this from a Gary Oldman
That's really
character,
funny.
but it's oh, it is not good.
I feel like you're going a little deep on that. I mean, because I grew up in the suburbs of New York, and it's like that that archetype of a kid is instantly recognizable to me. So
That's what Laura told
yes,
me.
it's
I don't think I
problematic,
knew
but
these
it's
kids.
problematic because it's so true. Um,
Yeah.
that was a real thing and very much existed in the 90s. I mean, hip hop culture was everywhere, and it manifested in some very unfortunate ways.
That's one of the things that I really like about the writing of this film is that you have these characters that are, I mean, basically stereotypes with a little more depth, but they're still interesting. And I, like you said, there's someone you relate to at this party, no matter which character it is. But I think like they're over the top in their cliche of like the hip hop appropriation, for example, or the Mike character being this uber jock. But I think that sort of elevation of it makes them more relatable in some weird way,
Well,
far
I'll
more than Beth
say,
Cooper.
as far as Kenny goes, I mean, once again, this is a character in the wrong hands can be would drag this movie into the ocean. I mean, it would just be a weight dragging this movie down if you play it wrong.
Yeah.
So casting Seth Green in a way is hugely important to the character in the movie because he's able to show the vulnerability behind that persona, which is essentially what it is. It's a persona masking a deep insecurity that he gets to play off of later. And yeah, I think if you cast a different actor and he plays that differently, it would just suck, and it would really suck 20 years later. But even
Yeah.
now, even though as you're recoiling from some of the stuff in it, you see there's a little heart behind it, and it makes it go down a little bit easier.
Yeah. He's a really good, actor. I
Yeah,
think
another quick little
no
side note
problem.
on this, because I went deep on like researching Can't Hardly Wait, is that
Yeah.
he was already working on like the robot chicken stuff at this time, where they said that everyone else was going out and partying, and he didn't go out at all. He had a thing even then where if you gave him a picture of yourself, he would make like an action figure head for you and put it onto an action figure. And he was already doing this stuff at that time. So it was like a little side business that he had. So he was growing that work that was going to eventually become Robot Chicken and put him into a completely different place.
That's funny you mentioned that because there's a moment in this where there's a Mike bobblehead, the Fasinelli character. So I wonder if Seth Green made it because it's crazy that there would be a bobblehead in
It's
1998.
certainly possible. It's certainly possible.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna look into that because I didn't know he did the Robot Chicken, like the actual work in it. I mean,
Yeah,
I guess that makes
it's
sense if he made it.
basically his show, him and a couple of friends of his, but it's their show. So and that's the thing he always wanted to do. So yeah, once he moved into that, he started acting a little bit less. Uh, but yeah, it ended up being really successful for him. And obviously, I mean, people who have or haven't watched Robot Chicken, I love that show. I thought it was really funny, especially if you have the same references, the references that we have. It's perfect. Mm.
Uh, there's so many people in this cast, and it's pretty clear that it's a smarter, like better thought out cast than Beth Cooper. But just to give a couple people their due, Lauren Ambrose, I've always really really liked her. I think she's great. She brings kind of a good attitude that not a good attitude, but almost like a bad attitude that, or a kind of like a cynical attitude that I really like. I relate to it.
Well, she's in Yellow
So
Jackets now,
yeah,
which could essentially be this character grown up
yeah.
because it's the dark cynicism of that character as well. So
Kind of played a similar character, I think, in 6 Feet Under on HBO. So, but that's her strength. So you play to your strengths, and I really like her. I think she's great. Peter Fasinelli, you know, poor man's Tom Cruise is what I call him. He in this film, he very much brings that thing we talked about last week, which is 80s Tom Cruise that neither of us really likes.
that's a
You know,
great
I,
catch.
I don't, not a fan. He doesn't really change in the end, which is kind of a bummer. But he's worked pretty steadily. I mean, mainly on Nurse Jackie is a thing that I saw him on for quite a bit. But doing a lot of like guest star spots, and of course in the Twilight films. So yeah, everybody in this really went on to do something interesting, whether it lasted or not. Varies, but you have Jason Segel in his first film. You have
Well,
Clea
that is the
Duvall.
one other connection with Beth Cooper, by the way, that they both have really small parts by people that were in Freaks and Geeks, which I thought was kind of funny.
Who's in Beth Cooper?
So
Oh,
in Beth Cooper, the convenience store
oh,
worker
Sam Levine.
is
Right, right.
Sam. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. Well, I think that's maybe one of the only good things they have in common.
You end up having Sarah Rue has a small
Mhm.
part. Selma Blair, you see her really quick. Uh, who's another one?
Jerry
Who else?
O'Connell,
Yeah, he has a great small part. Clea Duvall,
Melissa Joan Hart.
Melissa Joan Hart. She took that small part because she was still making Sabrina the Teenage Witch. But yeah, Clea Duvall has a small part in it. So all these people that end up doing much bigger things, they just show up in this movie for like 30 seconds and they're in the background. But Yeah, it's fun to go back and watch it now and realize and recognize how many faces that you remember or now know is something else.
Jamie Presley is another one who was in it. Yeah, it's just I love that about it. I don't know of another film that has this many people in it who you would go on to be somebody you recognize. I mean, they're all background players who get maybe a line or two. I mean, some more than others, but it's just really interesting. And I don't know if there's another on maybe the Scream stuff, but those aren't even background players. They're
Yeah.
just you know like high on the call sheet. So it's yeah, that's really interesting about it.
But again, it's
I,
partially because when this movie was made, there were so few of these movies being made that they just had a wealth of talent to choose from.
I mean, kudos to the filmmakers for creating an environment and a story that's going to need all of these people. I mean, they it's like they basically gave work to all of the people who are this age in Hollywood at the time, which is pretty amazing. Um, yeah, so let's talk about the directors. It's Harry Elfon and Deborah Kaplan who are kind of a team. They work together on everything, primarily as writers, but they've directed a few things. Josie and the Pussycats is kind of their biggest claim to fame beyond
Yeah,
this.
Josie and the Pussycats is a bit of a sleeper for me. I think that movie is a bit underrated. I think as a satire, it works really well, and the fact that it's got Parker Posey and Alan Cumming just chewing all the scenery possible, it is pretty fun. But I think it's a bit of an underrated movie.
Should we do that and match it against Gem and the Holograms? Wasn't that like a similar movie that came out? Or
Did
Spice
they?
World?
Yeah, did they make a movie of Gem and the Holograms? I don't even
I think
remember.
so. I think
Then
in
we
the
definitely
past
should.
like 10 years. Yeah, that
Then
would
we
be
should do that.
interesting.
Yeah,
They're primarily writers though, and they've written things like Maid of Honor and Leap Year, which are both pretty well-known films that,
I
I don't
noticed.
remember Leap Year, but
Come
I
on,
kinda like Maid of
that was a
Honor.
good Amy Adams movie. It takes place in Ireland. Come on, man.
Yeah, I'm okay on Amy Adams, but I don't see
Yo,
everything she does,
you want to have
unfortunately.
a throwdown? Speak ill of Amy Adams, and we're gonna have to throw down. We discussed this before.
One of the things that I like about this film is the style of it. It feels very MTV and kind of that decade. A lot of quick cuts, a lot of weird angles, but it's it's visually kind of sneaky brilliant. There are a lot of things in it that you don't expect to see that tell the story in a great way. Things like wide angles or dolly shots. I mean, it takes a lot to take this sort of confined space and make it interesting and less crowded. And I think they do a good job of that with a lot of the things they do. The DP on it is Lloyd Ahern too, the second. Well, I call him two, but um, it sounds cooler that way. Lloyd Ahern the second.
It does sound
And
better.
I think working in tandem with the directors kind of develops that visual style, and it really works for this film. And when we go on to Beth Cooper, I'm going to have kind of the opposite feelings about it. But for this film, I think it's just really clever. I mean, you have the scene with the letter where you follow the letter from the trash can to Amanda. I just think that's very well thought out and very smart for something like this.
Yeah, and that's one of the few long takes that you're able to keep in because it's found in the letter. As I said to you, it didn't have drinking in it. I think what's a shame is that for first time directors, they really did some ambitious things. And I think that their filmmaking skills were way above what you'd think they would be as first time directors. But you didn't get to see even all of what they were able to do because the movie gets chopped up so much. But I think is a real shame because yeah, even from what we can see, I think that you have very assured directors who understand their material and they know exactly what they want it to look like. They storyboarded out a lot of this stuff. And I think it's a shame that we never got to fully see what their vision was going to be. But you're right. They figured out a way to take when you're making a self-contained movie in one location, you have to find interesting ways to shoot it to keep the visual interest up. And they do a really good job of that.
Yeah, I mean they're night and day, these two films, when it comes to the visuals. So
And
I'm
yet the second movie is directed by by all accounts, one of the more successful directors of the past 20 years. So
yeah.
go figure.
Um, it's, uh, let's quickly talk before we move on to that film, talk about the music in this, because this is a time of soundtracks, and this one has a really, really good one. I wonder how much of the budget was spent getting these needle drops because there's some pretty great music in this film, and I know you're a music guy, so what is your take on the sound?
Yeah. So I have to say first, and this is going to make me sound like a nerd, but I don't care. I really appreciate the Barry Manilow subplot in this movie,
Yeah, I like it too.
because as one of my mother's favorite artists was Barry Manilow, and so it was being played in my house when I was a kid most of my life. So I know almost all of these songs by heart, and I like almost every Barry Manilow song by heart. I'm not even kidding. So I have a huge soft spot for Barry Manilow, especially because he's a New Yorker, and I really enjoy him. I always was a fan. So anyway, I probably appreciate the Barry Manilow subplot more than most. um, Also, Matthew Sweet is involved in this. He was actually worked on the score, and he was involved in the music for this movie and wrote a song for it. Matthew Sweet made two of my favorite albums of all time, "Girlfriend" and "100% Fun." I think he's pretty underrated as just like a power pop genius. And unfortunately, he had an illness last year. He had a stroke, which is very, very unfortunate. He's still recovering from that, but I think that everyone should go back and listen to those two albums. They're a lot of fun. But yeah, even in terms of the soundtracks of these, like this movie, other than the Barry Manilow part, it's pretty current. There's quite a few current songs in it. It's very much of the moment. I mean, Missy Elliott's in the soundtrack. There's the obligatory Smash Mouth song at the time.
Yeah,
Third
yeah.
Eye Blind is another one. Uh, but yeah, centering the middle of the movie around Paradise City is pretty funny. But do
That's
you
another
know?
smart scene.
Yeah, but one other thing regarding the music, the title was originally going to be called, I think, "The Party," and it was changed to "Can't Hardly Wait," which is actually the title of a replacement song, and that's even where it got its title. So you know that the filmmakers are kind of attuned to music by picking a replacement song as the title. So it's got this nice mix of cool older music, but also very current music that I think works really well.
Incredibly eclectic too, because it goes from Barry Manilow to Smash Mouth to Run DMC to White Zombie to Guns N' Roses. Like it's all over the place, and it all I think works really well. I really loved listening to it as it played.
My favorite Blink 182 song, "Damn It," which was very early in their careers at this point. I'm not even sure how big they were in 98, but yeah, they were just coming up. So that was one of my favorite songs at that time.
So let's move on to the strengths of this film. I mean, for me, there are many, and I am excited to talk about them. But what do you see as the strengths of it?
Yeah, as we said, I think the strengths are very much in the ensemble cast. I think the strengths are in the script in terms of being able to make a self-contained movie is a smart move for first-time filmmakers, and they're able to paint fun characters, and it thrives on these young actors. I think the pacing works really well, regardless of the cuts that I talked about previously, which make the movie a little bit choppy. But unlike Beth Cooper, again, because you're able to bounce between a bunch of different people, I think it keeps the energy up. So it never lags as much as, say, something like Beth Cooper does, where you're just focusing on these people, three or four people in their story. So I think it benefits from all of that. It makes the movie feel fast, which is important in a movie like this because you do not want it to lag.
Right. I agree with all that. I think the visuals too are a big part of what makes it very compelling to me. And we mentioned the soundtrack. I think the writing is just good. I like it a lot. I think it has like the right balance of comedy and drama, the way I think the John Hughes stuff did in the 80s. And I think if we're comparing these two films, you look at Beth Cooper, which we'll get into in a minute, the tone is very different and the tone is kind of all over the place in that. And this is very like balanced
Can I?
and credit to the
I just
writers.
want to piggyback on your point, which I think is a really good one. You mentioned John Hughes, which everyone making a teen movie in some way is echoing John Hughes, and everyone knows this. And I think you're 100% right. But there are two John Hugheses that I think people kind of forget when you think about it. You think mostly of the teen longing stuff, and you think of that part. When you go back and watch those Hughes movies, because he initially wrote for, I think he wrote for Mad Magazine, and he was involved in kind of that part as well. There's a bit of a nastiness to some of John Hughes's work. If you
You
go
said
back,
National Lampoon.
National Lampoon, that's it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a certain nastiness to some of John Hughes's work that I think people forget. And going back and rewatching some of his stuff, it doesn't all work, because the 80s, I think you could be a little bit edgier, a little bit meaner. I think that Beth Cooper probably leans a little too much on the nastiness of some of the John Hughes stuff to its detriment. And I think that's what hamstrings it, where Can't Hardly Wait is a little bit of the sweeter side, if I had to put it plainly.
No, that's a great point. I think you're exactly right there. And that works better for teenagers, I think. I
I
mean,
think it absolutely does. I think without the
yeah.
heart, if it's a little too mean, it just falls flat. So I think that's the thing with Can't Hardly Wait. The sweetness is worn on its sleeve, so even the some of the meaner stuff is easier to take.
Yeah. So those are the strengths. What are some of the weaknesses that you saw in this film?
Yeah. So going back and rewatching this, I have one really big weakness that actually really bugs me, and in some ways makes me like the movie a bit less. There's all this revisionist looking at, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of looking back at this
Retconning?
period of time and talking about how female characters are portrayed. And there's that idea of the manic pixie dream girl, and all of this, shown through the eyes of male characters. And this one, I didn't realize it until I rewatched it now, how much of that is prevalent in this. Because if you think about it, when they show you those they show you the resumes of the characters at the beginning, where they're
Yeah.
going, what their quote is, all of this. For Amanda, it basically says that she's undecided, that she has no future plans. So she is a cipher. Like, she is not a character. She is the girlfriend of one boy, and at the end she becomes the girlfriend of another boy. But she has no actual agency of her own, other than the one part where she finally tells off Mike. But she doesn't have dreams or a plan. She's not going to school anywhere. Nothing happens. And even at the end of the movie, they only speak about her in relation to Preston, where she writes him a letter every day and they're still together. Well, what the hell is she doing? Where did she end up going? Is she just sitting in a room writing letters to Preston? Like, she is a complete cipher, only told through the male characters of the movie. And I can't believe I'm the one saying this, but it's crazy to me. And I kind of hate it. And I think that it's very lazy and really, really bugs me about this movie. You could have given her some story, some life. She is a person. I mean, and she's supposedly a main character of the movie. I'd like to think she's somewhere.
100% agree with this. I mean, like I pointed out before, because I don't really see her acting in this film, I didn't know how she was as an actor necessarily, because she's just there, like, not even saying anything really, just kind of looking pretty, the object of affection. Mike Dexter can't have her. And then immediately it's like Piranha with blood in the water, and everybody just treats her like garbage right away. Even the dude who is like the nostalgic guy, hey, remember I had a boner? Like it, I mean, that is really ham-fisted and not cool. I mean, that really is the most problematic part of
The
this.
main problem of the movie is its characterization of Amanda and how she is throughout the whole movie. It's pretty lazy. I almost think the movie would be better served without her, without any reference to her at all in some ways. And interestingly enough, the movie was originally supposed to be with Preston ending up with Denise. That was the original script. And then they changed it.
Makes
And
sense.
yeah, and they wrote in the Amanda character, but you can feel that because Amanda almost feels like an afterthought.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, and I'm glad you brought it up because that was my main weakness too. And I mean, she's like central to the narrative, and it's unfortunate that she's an object and not a
And
human
because you'd like to
being.
think when she finally has her moment where she stands up for herself and with Mike, that you're seeing a change in that character. But the other part too is because she's dating Mike Dexter, she's the most popular girl in school, but you also get no sense of that at all because she's completely isolated at the party. Like she has no friends at all, even though she's super popular. Like no one wants to talk to her. Uh, it's a little bit weird too. So again, she's not in any way a character unto herself. She's only a character reflected through other people throughout the entire movie. But she has her moment, and you like to think she's finally gaining agency over her life. But then we still never find out that she accomplishes anything or goes anywhere. So I
Yeah.
don't quite know how to take that.
I think there's only the one moment where she's with Jamie Presley and her friends, but I think because Mike dumped her, maybe at this party she's kind of persona non grata with that
But here's the
group.
other part.
But why
Can you
isn't everybody
imagine
else talking to
her
her?
being friends with those girls and talking to them in any way?
Not at all.
So
Yeah.
that's the other part too. It's so
Yeah.
incongruous where you feel like, did she ever hang out at a party or in a room with those three girls and talk to them? Because I can't imagine that being true.
Yeah. That's really kind of the thing that brings the film down, and that's unfortunate. I mean,
I'm sorry.
that's
Now I
kind of
feel
a
like I just
theme.
crapped all over Can't Hardly Wait, but if that part really did bug me. It actually made the movie feel worse to me, even though for the most part I liked it.
I mean, that's a theme. Last week we talked about that with Days of Thunder and F1, where the female characters weren't really drawn out very well. Let's talk about because we really want to get to the next film, but a couple standout scenes in this. The Guns N' Roses thing in particular is like the main thing that stands out to me, and the letter. I think those are both really well shot um, scenes. So I'm very, very pleased that I got to watch those again. Other than that, I don't. There's nothing really that uh,
Love the
stands out to me.
subplot of the band. That the band is about, like, do you get the whole breaking up and reforming of a band without them ever playing a single note, which I just think is very, very
Yeah.
funny. I just think that's really well done.
Forgot to mention in that band is Breckenmeyer, who was actually married to Deborah Kaplan, the director, for 10 years, and Donald Faison, who we know from T-Mobile commercials and
Yeah.
Clueless, who kind
Clueless,
of
yeah.
found his niche in these films of the 90s, also went on to be on Scrubs. So yeah, there's two other characters who showed up. I think that band subplot was really only there so William would have his moment of like shining, and getting to sing
That's fair. But
Paradise City.
I just do like that we never hear not a single note that the band ever plays. I just appreciate how well that's done.
Yeah. I also appreciated the Kurt Vonnegut name check at the end. He's one of my favorite writers, so I really liked hearing. Worth noting that Jennifer Love Hewitt has been talking about making a sequel to this that she wants to direct. So it'll be interesting to see.
I can understand that
end up.
because she's like, maybe my character can finally get some kind of life. I'm going to handle it. I'm just going to take over and give my
Yeah.
character some form. So yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, if women want their due, they have to do it themselves. Laura and I were talking about this last night. Like all of these women who are getting older and not getting roles. I brought it up because of Rachel McAdams. Like I think she's amazing in like later roles, and saying how these women are all starting production companies to give themselves these roles because the men aren't doing it. So this is another example of that. All right. Well, then, I think we've talked enough about Can't Hardly Wait. Why don't we move on to talking about I Love You, Beth Cooper?
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to this. The quick overview is Dennis, the main character here, played by Paul Rust, as a secret crush on Beth Cooper, the hottest girl in school. During his valedictorian speech, he professes his love for her, which is kind of crazy and really unfair to all of the other graduates. I think that's not a very good thing to do, but he does it nonetheless. And instead of dissing him outright, she actually ends up going to his graduation party and basically spending the evening hanging out with him and sort of bringing him into her world. Really makes zero sense on its face, but we'll talk a little bit about why it might make more sense than it seems. I think it's interesting. You talked about the films of this time. And I think there were things like Mean Girls, of course, a couple years before this, and John Tucker Must Die is another one that I think is like sort of its ilk. To me, both of them are a little more biting, or all of these films are a little more biting than Can't Hardly Wait or the things from the 90s. Uh, my theory on that is that it's because these are post 9/11 films and because we're living in a different time than the sort of halcyon days of the 90s, even though, there was a whole lot going on then. But we're living through the Bush era. We're living through, having had 9/11 happen to the country. And I think film in general got a little more cynical and a little edgier after that. And I think that even the teen comedies of the 2000s kind of reflect that. And Beth Cooper is a great example of that. I mean, this is a very uh, sort of biting film that is a little darker than Can't Hardly Wait. So, uh,
I have to admit, I
what do
do
you think?
not have "I Love You, Beth Cooper" and 9/11 on my bingo card, so, I appreciate your way of melding these together, but you might be
I'm
right.
making the connections.
I think that it is possible that there is a darker tone to this, which might be what hurts the movie. So,
Yeah, I think it does.
but
So the
besides the
story
other
of
things,
this,
so let's just say "I Love You, Beth
yeah,
Cooper" is based on a book which was very popular. Uh, it was very successful, and the writer of the book actually writes the screenplay of this movie. And then you have Chris Columbus directing this movie. Of Chris Columbus obviously directed Home Alone, which is a pretty big deal, and
by John Hughes. So he
by
has that
John Hughes.
DNA.
He
Yeah.
also directed the very first movie he directed was Adventures in Babysitting way back in the day. But he's coming off of directing two Harry Potter movies, the first two Harry Potter movies. So coming off of that, he decides he kind of wants to go back to the beginning and make a low budget run and gun kind of movie without these giant budgets and all of this studio involvement. So he chooses to make this. And it, what's funny to me is watching I Love You, Beth Cooper, and disliking it probably as much as I did made me go back and look at the work that Chris Columbus has actually done. And it makes you realize that his filmography is a lot more hit and miss than you may think it is, because the hits were so big. They make you forget about a lot of other movies that he did that were not very good, like Bicentennial Man, and uh, I'm sure you can pick out a couple of others.
Pixels.
Which?
Pixels.
Yeah, right. He directed Pixels, what I didn't realize is how few movies he's directed in like the last 20 years. So after I Love You, Beth Cooper, I think he only directed a movie every 5 years. So I wonder what that means in terms of what I Love You, Beth Cooper did for his own enjoyment or his career in general.
It really seems like the Harry Potter films were kind of a pinnacle. I mean, Home Alone, of course, and all the things prior to it, but it's really downhill from there because you have I Love You, Beth Cooper, which maybe sort of started a downward trajectory. I don't know how young people feel about Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief. Very, very popular series of books, but I don't know
Well,
how
I can
the
just tell you
films received.
as someone with a son who loves Percy Jackson, has read all the books and loves it.
I was going to ask, yeah.
He loves the TV series, and I think that part of that is because the movies weren't that good. So
Okay.
the
It's
TV
kind of what I
series is a
thought.
better version of the Percy Jackson tales.
So yeah, I mean, it's I Love You, Beth Cooper. It's Pixels, and then it's on to the Netflix money. So he directs the Christmas Chronicles too,
Yeah,
and the Thursday Murder Club. So
Thursday Murder
yeah,
Club
it
was a
really
fun
takes a
movie,
weird
but
turn.
is a strange choice for him. Yeah,
I mean, he is in the director's chair for the upcoming Gremlins 3, which I'm actually pretty excited about because I love Joe Dante, and I think you know I'm holding out hope.
yeah. Well, I mean, he did write the original screenplay, so it's. I don't know if it's nice to say he's returning to it, or it's a bit of a tail between the legs return to Gremlins 3 because it's time to go back to past successes. But who knows? It could be fun. We'll see.
Maybe he'll ruin it. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. So yeah, the story and structure of this is we kind of mentioned it already, but it's almost like you take two or I guess five of the people from that Can't Hardly Wait party and give them their own story. I mean, they're kids on graduation night. As we mentioned, Dennis professes his love. Beth Cooper, for some reason that I don't know if we can work to figuring out, gives him the time of day and spends the whole night with him. She has a boyfriend who's kind of like a Terminator who just
Yep.
keeps coming after them.
Yes.
And she really pulls Dennis and his buddy into her world. I think it's interesting that as the film goes on, he's more and more beat up and bleeding, and he loses more and more clothing. So I just think that's kind of fun.
Good
I don't know
point.
if that's intentional, but
S-
that's like one of the few things that I actually liked noticing in this.
Here's my feelings about I Love You, Beth Cooper in a nutshell. I think it's based on one, how you feel about Hayden Panettiere as an actress. I actually like her, and she's in the middle of doing Heroes at this point, which is a very popular show at the time, which I really liked before it went off the rails. Um, but how much you think that she can carry the movie, first off, and mileage may vary depending on how some people feel about her. I know some people have strangely negative feelings about her. I'm not really sure why. But the other part is how you feel about the main character of this movie. And I think universally, everyone thinks that this is a terrible main character to base a movie on, because not even saying much about the actor himself, because I think he's playing the character as is written on the page or how it's supposed to be. But having a character come out in the first scene and give that speech, the I love you, Beth Cooper thing is one thing. But then having the character go on to reveal secrets or things
Yeah,
about
it's
other
crazy.
people in the audience sets him up as a dick, like right out of the gate. And it makes him not very sympathetic or likable. And throughout the movie, I think you're just struggling to find out why you care about him or why you'd be rooting for him. And I don't know at any point if you ever do. Even when he's being threatened and beaten up, I don't ever feel like I'm rooting for this character.
It really comes down, I think, to the writing. And you mentioned it was written by Roddy Doyle, who wrote the book, the writer on The Simpsons. So he kind of knows what he's doing. But the book was very well received, and you mentioned earlier that it pretty much stays true to it for the most part. But I think that's the problem. Is like a book doesn't necessarily translate to the screen, and I think it has to be a different thing.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
again, I
when you
mentioned this
have
to
the book
you.
writer,
Well, I mentioned to you off from the pod that they changed the entire ending because they realized that the ending of the book would not work in the film. They they had to change it. So you're right. I think that though for the rest of it, they hew very closely to the book. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I just think that, you know, it's not always a good idea for the book writer to write dialogue or to pace a film. You know, Cormac McCarthy, you know, he's an example of like with The Counselor, you know,
Right.
like, it's just not, I don't know why I even mention him of all the people, but it's a different skill set. And some people can do it. I think Gillian Flynn is a good example of that, but some people can't. And this is an example of
Yeah, I mean
where
William Goldman.
somebody should have done it.
William Goldman's a great example, obviously.
Of
He,
course.
he wrote The Princess Bride, and you can see the differences, obviously, in the way he frames the movie. It's someone who understands books and movies. I think you're right. I think that part of the problem too is that the author of a book feels very precious about what they've created, and I think they very much want to keep as much of it as possible. Whereas a person making a movie, it doesn't have the same feelings, and they're going to cut things to make the movie work. And so I think being in love with your own material is a detriment to making a movie out of a book.
I am experiencing this firsthand right now. With my wife Laura is adapting her memoir, My Father's List, and originally she was going to write it, and then they brought in a screenwriter, you know, and hearing the pitches, it's a completely different thing. I mean, this writer has taken liberties that work for the screen. I mean, it's a completely different story, but the way she tells the story is very different than Laura wrote it in the book. And that's again, it's a skill set. And so seeing Larry Doyle do both, I think kind of sets this up to fail, really. It feels like cashing in on a book, which is something Hollywood does all the time, but just like maybe pushing it out the door and giving Larry Doyle a chance because he has that Simpsons clout and just not working.
Yeah, and what's really strange is that a writer for The Simpsons, um, writes the comedy of this is so broad. Like, it goes
It really is.
the what am I trying to say? It veers so wildly between trying to have heart and this broad slapstick that it just feels almost like two completely different movies crashing into each other at all times.
There's no continuity to the tone of it, and I think that really just takes you out of it.
And I'm not sure if you're supposed to find the ultra violence brought upon Dennis to be funny, but it feels like genuine assault where you're like, this doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
Someone needs to call the police. This
Yeah.
isn't good.
Yeah, it's a very problematic film, unfortunately. You mentioned Hayden Panettiere. I only know her from Heroes and from Nashville.
She was
I know that
great
she
in
was
Nashville,
in,
by the way. That was a good time, that show.
yeah, she was in a couple Scream films, but she seems like she kind of works best on television, at least according to her filmography. I don't know that she can carry a film very well.
Possibly. This
I think
was
this
a
was the
run,
first
though, where
film.
she was playing a lot of cheerleaders, strangely enough. I don't know.
She was on Heroes, right? Wasn't she a cheerleader
Yeah.
in
She
that?
got typecast as cheerleader for a little while. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
I think she was in the sequel to Bring It On, too. So she was
Yeah, one
just
of
a
the
run
straight to
of
video
of
versions.
being a cheerleader. I don't know.
Yeah. Dennis is played by Paul Rust, who is a little out of his depth here. He sort of plays a similar character because I think that's really his range as an actor is in Love, the Netflix show directed by Judd Apatow. I really like him in that, and that was the first thing I actually saw him in. He's he's a regular on the Comedy Bang Bang podcast, which is where I came to know him. And believe it or not, he and the actor comedian Matt Gorley have a podcast called With Gorley and Rust that is all about horror movies. So if you can imagine Dennis from this movie like breaking down horror movies every week with another comedian, it's quite interesting. But I really do like him. I don't think he works in this film, and I don't know that he's had leads other than this in his filmography, except for Love. But under the tutelage of Judd Apatow, I think getting a little better direction and a little better writing, maybe he can elevate a little bit. And working alongside Gillian Jacobs, I think helps too, because when you have somebody to play off of it, that's going to make a big difference. But yeah, I mean, there's almost no other cast worth talking about here because nobody, unlike Can't Hardly Wait, nobody really has any depth to them or anything interesting to talk
Yeah, so
about.
the Jack the Jack Carpenter plays Rich, right? That's his friend.
Kevin. Oh no, it's for yeah.
I think it's Rich. Yeah. So he plays
Yeah.
a friend Rich, and I feel like the character is particularly painful. I mean, one, because there's the whole he's gay but doesn't know it subplot, which is really weird. But besides
Really.
the fact that he's clearly painted as a movie nerd and is constantly quoting movies, which uh is doubly painful because I don't know if it's just that the character is poorly written or it's like, is that what I sound like to people?
It
Which is
is.
pretty depressing either way.
Well,
But
here's the thing though. I mean, you know, you and I both love movies, and when we're in conversation, we're not like Al Pacino's Scarface, De Palma,
it's true. I
1981.
never
mean,
throw out a
nobody
line
does
and then
that.
tell you the year and the end of the movie and then the director. I
Yeah.
don't actually speak that way, so that's fair. But yeah, it
But
gives a
that's a
bad
movie
name to
trope.
people that love movies, and that's what I think that's what offends me even more.
Yeah, I agree. Just poorly written, as is everybody.
I
will
do,
also shout
however,
out.
like the only scene in this movie I really like, and I will say this, is the towel scene, the towel snapping scene, where it flashes back
Really?
to when he's a kid and getting hit, and he's like, never again. Then he trains to be good at it, leading up to the climactic scene. It doesn't totally work, but I'm actually slightly amused by this scene. I don't know why.
It's mildly amusing, but it really doesn't fit the tone of the film. I mean, it's
Not at all.
so.
But again,
Oh,
nothing fits the tone of this movie. So I don't look at it even as a whole. I'm just like,
that's
are there
true.
small parts in it that I can pull from it that I think are amusing? And I thought that 3-minute sequence is amusing, totally independent of the rest of the movie because none of the pieces fit together. So just to be clear, but I thought that was
And
amusing in and of itself.
that's a chance for him to reenact the Robin Hood scene that he doesn't do with his boner with Dennis, like they flashback to earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
God, it's just so bad. Alan Ruck is in this. I feel like I should mention. Man, he's something else. He's kind of like he's always Cameron to me in varying degrees from Ferris Bueller, but he kind of goes through a run of like guest spots on TV shows, but then he's in The Dropout, he's in Freaky, where he plays like actually like the darkest version of Cameron. He's a total asshole teacher, and of course lands on Succession. But
Yeah.
even
Well,
though I don't find a lot of range in him, I really enjoy him.
well, just to say randomly, I don't know why, but I went back and watched the first episode of a show called Bunheads, which was the show that
We
Amy
love
Sherman
it.
Palladino made after she made the Gilmore Girls. And he's in the first episode of that show, very much playing like Cameron, like pining after the main character. Um, and so that's like 2012. So you're right. He's just is this run of doing these small parts in a bunch of random things where he's giving off Cameron energy. So yeah, I had totally forgotten he was even in that show.
Also good to mention too, Andrea Savage, who plays the principal of the school. I
Yeah,
really like her as a comedic actress. Could possibly be the same character she plays Dr. Angelface in Step Brothers, because they're both doctors. And I just always really like her. She had a show called I'm Sorry on, I want to say, True TV. That was really good. I think she's just a smart writer and like a fun actor to watch.
yeah, and
So
again shows you how kind of how this movie doesn't really work because even her small part is kind of wasted in a weird flashback where it's like that didn't work. Um, so just
yeah,
something I don't find funny.
would have loved to have seen her come back for a bigger part in this. But the only teacher we get is the gym teacher who somehow brokers a fight club at the kids' party that night, which is just bizarre.
That was strange.
God,
Yeah,
it's
and
just
by
so
the way,
bad.
just not to keep trashing this movie, but using like sexual abuse as a punchline is just real dark. Like it's just not. It's not great. Like yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, maybe I'm overly sensitive, but I don't think so. I laugh at a lot of things, but I don't think that's funny. It's not.
it's
That's not.
not.
It's just not a good
No,
tone.
it's just not. I mean, there's just nothing. It was like an active effort for me to keep this film on as it was running because I just
You're welcome.
couldn't. Thanks. uh, I mean, that's going to happen from time to time, and we're comparing films, and one's going to be better, and one's going to be worse, and
Yeah. And
that's
sometimes it's good
pretty
to have
obvious here.
a comparison that is, so stark. But and again, we're talking about this movie coming out in 2009. And I think, yeah, I mean, not only because this movie was kind of garbage, but it certainly plays into just the end of this run. It very much shows you that they're running out of steam and it feels pretty lazy. And you can see that this genre is starting to run on fumes. And in the 2010s, you get into a point where the big budget movies come in and rom-coms in general, but particularly teen movies. There's just no budget for these kinds of movies anymore.
Yeah,
And I love you, Beth Cooper lost money, so that probably didn't help either. I think the studios all just started deciding that they don't want to be in this business anymore. And whether or not the quality of Beth Cooper helped kill it is debatable. I'd say it certainly didn't help, but we're just seeing the sunsetting of this kind of movie, which dominated the early 2000s.
yeah. It had a $16 million budget, or it had an $18 million budget and made 16 million. Can't Hardly Wait had a $26 million budget. Or I'm sorry, Jesus, had a between 10 and $13 million budget and made 26 million, so it doubled its budget.
Yeah. The thing
Um,
about Can't
I,
Hardly Wait, though, its theater run was small, and they were pretty disappointed. It was considered disappointing because everyone thought it would do much better because the early screenings were really, really strong. But again, it has a huge life on home video. So at that time, that was a big deal, and it has this resurgence, and it takes on a cult quality. I Love You, Beth Cooper did not have that tail.
yeah,
So
not surprising. Just because you mentioned that, let me talk real quickly about the Rotten Tomatoes scores on these because that's sort of a tale of the tape. Can't Hardly Wait has a 42% critics rating. Not great, but whatever. 63% audience rating. Still not great, but fresh. Beth Cooper has a 14% critics rating and a 32% audience rating.
so I just was thinking about this, and here's my theory on this. that I really do think the teen movies, work in two ways. It either works in terms of nostalgia for the people watching them, or it works in terms of, can you relate to the characters in the movie and pull something out that feels personal to you? And that's what makes these movies work. And I love you, Beth Cooper. If you relate to any of these characters, it's possible that you're a sociopath. And so it makes you feel bad about yourself. If you see yourself in these people, I think you feel badly about yourself. And that would explain why people hate it. Because you either hate the movie or you hate yourself. So either way, it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, you want to feel good, and this movie doesn't make anybody feel
It doesn't.
good.
It ends with two characters talking about actively kidnapping a person to show their love.
Yeah.
That's a bad way to end a movie. So either
Yeah.
way, it's like all of it's bad. It's just bad. It doesn't make you feel good about yourself, about the movie, about the people involved. Not great.
So there are a lot of weaknesses. Do you find any strengths in this film?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I told you
really
the only
don't.
scene I really liked. There are all the strengths in this movie. I just don't. I don't. Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, it makes me wonder. This movie was also PG-13. If it was rated R, and you just went all the way and had a really hard edge and made this movie like really nihilistic, would it have worked more? I don't know. It's hard to say, but it couldn't have hurt because it's just like you said. This tone of it is kind of mean, and I wonder if you just went there, if that might have helped.
It feels like it's pushing that R rating without actually getting it. It could definitely. I mean, it couldn't get worse. I think it could maybe do a little better if it had that R rating, but I don't even know what you would do to make it like. Maybe you would show that absurd shower scene where these three cheerleaders take these two nerds to the school and cheer for them and then invite them into the shower. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like the main
I will
weakness.
say, sorry to interrupt, but I will say the one thing, that one scene, that cheerleading scene, and when, Beth has this realization in that moment, about her life. And the way the movie's talked about, the way Chris Columbus talked about it was this idea that you have an intersection of two people on different trajectories. Someone who went through the worst 4 years of their life compared with someone who went through the best 4 years of their life. And their lives are about to cross and then completely diverge in different directions, where someone's life is on the upswing, the other person's on the downswing. I think there's a fascinating story to be told in that context.
Yeah.
And that's why it almost makes the movie a double failure, because that is an interesting idea. And this movie doesn't execute that in any way. That one scene shows you there's a glimpse of her, seeing something, and there's that little bit of dialogue at the end where she talks about it. But I think that the exploration of that would have made a more interesting movie by far.
I think showing Beth Cooper prior to the speech gives you context, because he says at one point, she's not Beth Cooper, but we don't know who Beth Cooper is. I mean, there's no idea of, other than she's a cheerleader. Like, we don't know who she is. So when she has this realization that she's like peaked in high school, I mean, where does it come from? I have no context for that. And I think, I think that's something that she's much like the Mike Dexter character from Can't Hardly Wait, and kind of like high school's the dream, like the Trip McNeely, Jerry O'Connell character. Like, it's all downhill from here, but we don't know why that is for her. And you see a little more of that where it's established with Mike Dexter, and you just don't, other than she's a cheerleader, that's it. And there's just no depth to anybody in this film. And again, like, that's the biggest weakness, is the writing. It's just, it needs to be written better, and it could have been a better movie, I think.
And we won't even get into the discussion of how he was able to get a life-size poster of Beth Cooper and put it on the ceiling. But we won't even get to.
I know. Oh God, there's so many things we won't.
But here's a weird thing, though. I'm not even sure why I'm admitting this in a podcast, but I will say, in my high school, they actually did sell pictures of cheerleaders. And I remember this. It kind of hit me when I was watching the movie. I don't remember why. I think it was like a fundraiser. I don't know why. I do remember that when I was like, my school was like 7 to 12, actually, when I went to high school. So I think when I was in 7th grade, there was a senior cheerleader who I thought was the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen in my life. And I
Sure.
remember buying her picture for like $1. It was like a 3x5 little picture. I remember this. I don't know where it went. I have no idea what happened to it, but I remember buying it when I was like 12 years old. I did not blow it up. I did
Wow.
not put it on my ceiling. But this did happen, and they actually did sell pictures of cheerleaders back in the day. I remember this now. I had a mini
That
flashback about
feels
it.
like pre-internet, like, stalking,
Yeah.
or
To be
like, not
clear, there was
stalking,
nothing
but
untoward about it. I was a child.
yeah,
It's fine.
no, I know.
But
I know,
yeah,
but,
I do remember that.
the
And just think,
option.
looking back on it now, I realized how creepy it was that you could buy
Yeah,
pictures of the cheerleaders in the school. Like, that's super weird.
be. It's all
Yeah.
about broadcasting the kids. It's only gotten worse. I mean, everybody has a picture of their kid in the yard. I don't know if you do this. All respect if you do,
I
but
refuse to do that. I refuse to do that.
it feels like, look at me, and I I won't even get into this. I have a lot of thoughts on it, but um, yeah. Why don't we just quickly move on to the head-to-head comparison of these, so we can really get down to solving the mystery of which
I'm
one
not
is a
even sure it's
better
necessary at
film.
this point, but sure.
Story effectiveness. I think both of them could be good if they were executed well, meaning the writing, meaning every aspect of it. Can't Hardly Wait is better executed,
Yeah. I think
obviously, than
County
Beth
Weight is
Cooper.
60% effective, and I Love You, Beth Cooper is 5% effective.
That's a good
How's that?
percentage. Yeah. Characters are the characters. Which one has better characters in your mind?
I'm gonna go on a limb here. I'm gonna say Can't Hardly Wait has better characters. Again, not fully
Yeah,
drawn, but drawn enough for the time that we get to spend with them. Other than Amanda, of course, who's not drawn at all.
I think just to pause on this for a minute, there's potential here because they're both, as we mentioned, telling similar stories, and I think it's a good way to see how in better hands Can't Hardly Wait executes on that story. So there was a real potential to see, to kind of like almost one-to-one compare these, and we know where it lands with Can't
Yes,
Hardly
we
Wait.
we did it for you, so you don't have to do it for yourself.
Yeah. Tone and consistency.
Oof.
I
I think we
mean,
already established that one. We can move on. Jesus.
I mean, the consistency, and I do want to point out that the consistency in Beth Cooper, the lack of consistency, goes as far as the blocking of the shots and characters missing their marks. I mean, there are people standing in places when delivering lines that they should not be standing. I mean, it feels very amateur, and
And
the
it's so
pacing
strange.
of
How
it.
can that be? Like, how could that
How
be considering you're in the hands of a director who is very successful and has done this before? It's very weird. You'd think that from
it's
watching
really
these two
shocking.
movies that I Love You, Beth Cooper was by first time directors as opposed to
Yeah.
Can't Hardly Wait. It's very
Yep.
strange.
I think the pacing of the film is just the like I told you off air, it feels like a bunch of sitcom scenes that kind of like, now we're over here, and there's no real sitting in those scenes to connect to anything. I just felt nothing for any of these people because there's no through line that actually has any stakes to me emotionally that I want to
Yeah.
be a part of.
And you called it before too, like the going to the high school with no buildup or for no reason. Like there's absolutely no reason why they would go there. Like the, other than the fact that it's in the movie, like it's just a plot point. There's just nothing hinted at of why they would even show up there.
It's a bunch of plot points that don't necessarily connect. It feels like Days of Thunder in that way a little bit, where it's a bunch of like um, scenes, a bunch of set pieces that they've tried to build a story around, even though it comes from a book. I mean, that's crazy. Like, it's a well received book. It couldn't have been this bad, but again, bring in a different writer, and I think it's a different film. Rewatchability. Do either of these have rewatchability for you?
That's a difficult one. I mean, I Love You, Beth Cooper. No, I don't think I would watch this movie unless I was under duress to watch it again. But
I want to
can't hardly,
forget I saw it the first time.
right, can't hardly wait. There's certainly a rewatchability factor to it, but I think I would definitely skip more parts. Um, I think like 40 minutes of it is really rewatchable, and the rest of it is
I think Can't Hardly Wait is obviously the more rewatchable of the two, and I think the reason I like it as much as I do and would watch it again is because it's a little more of my time. I mean, these are very different times that these films are made in. And so for us as people of the age that we are, Beth Cooper probably isn't as even though the plight of the teenager feels sort of static throughout history, the way these stories are told over the years are a little different. And so the way it's told in 2010 isn't as relatable, at least to me, as it was in 1998 when I was just a little older than the people in this film. So I really related to that, and there's a nostalgia there that would
Yeah,
bring me back to it.
that's definitely a fair point. It's early enough. It's close enough to our own high school years where we can still feel ourselves in that movie.
Yeah, and I think that that different time, I don't know what like millennials or Gen Z feel about I Love You, Beth Cooper, but as far as cultural staying power goes, for Gen X, Can't Hardly Wait is pretty beloved, I think.
It
You
is.
know, when I look up gifs of these films on social media, there are none for Beth Cooper, but there are at least a few for Can't Hardly Wait. So that tells me, there's a little more cultural staying power for that. Yeah. So let's land the plane. Overall, for me, Can't Hardly Wait, hands down. I think it keeps my interest better. It's more relatable, better characters, better written, better made film.
This is probably
What about you?
as clear a winner as we've had, even more so than Mission Impossible and Rambo.
Missing in action in Rambo.
What did I say?
Mission Impossible. That would be a
Mission
different
Impossible. Oh,
matchup.
good God!
Ooh,
Is as missing in action and Rambo.
interest.
And I would definitely rewatch Missing in Action before rewatching I Love You, Beth Cooper.
Yeah. I want to hear your answers to our questions because even though
Okay.
we've decided who the winner is, let's hear. I mean, we talked about rewatchable, and that's definitely uh, Can't Hardly Wait. But would you want to hang out with one of the leads from either of these films?
Wow, that is an interesting question.
Right?
Yeah, I think that the only person I want to hang out with from any of these movies is probably Preston, as it's written, because as you've probably said before, I think it hews more closely to our own tendencies than anything else. I don't want to hang out with anybody from I Love You, Beth Cooper. I would be sick of them within minutes. But yeah, Preston may be the only person. Like, I don't think I would want to hang out with anybody else.
I think Preston and Denise. I'm in the
Yeah,
same
Denise,
place as you.
Denise, maybe she's almost too cynical even for me. But yeah, Denise probably.
That's my wheelhouse. Yeah. Is this a career peak or valley for any of the main players?
Man, I think it can be argued that it is a career peak for the writer directors. Can't hardly wait because they'd written a few movies up to this point, and this was their directorial debut. I don't know if they ever reached the heights that they reached here going forward, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the main other thing that they directed is Josie and the Pussycats, and I don't know if that was as beloved as
Yeah, I
this
don't think it's as
is.
beloved. Yeah, I don't think so. So this, yeah, so in my mind, this probably is their peak.
I think it's a peak for Ethan Embry. Just this period. I mean, he doesn't do much of note after this, after Disturbing Behavior a couple years later.
It could be argued that it is a peak for him as well.
I would also argue that this is a career low for everybody involved in I Love You, Beth Cooper. I mean, it does not get lower than that. So that entire film is a low for all involved. Uh,
No argument from me.
would one of these films be better if Steven Spielberg directed it?
This is tough. I always come off the premise that most movies would be better if Steven Spielberg was involved. But I think that there's a youthful exuberance that can't hardly wait that I think works with the directors that are doing it. Uh, I mean, I Love You, Beth Cooper could not be hurt by the fact that Steven Spielberg was involved. But the truth is, I think the best thing that Steven Spielberg would have done if he was involved with I Love You,
Yes.
Beth Cooper is he would have killed the project.
Yeah.
If they signed it
I,
on and he got the script, he would be like, I'm not going to make this movie. And then the movie would have
right.
died, and that probably would have been best for everybody involved.
Yeah, but I mean, it really can't get any worse.
No.
So
I mean,
I would
clearly it
argue
would be
that,
improved by having
yeah.
Stephen Throw directing it, but yeah, he would never have made this movie.
Would either of these films be better if you swap the lead actors? Not the characters, but the actors.
See, maybe I have a soft spot for Hayden Panettiere. I don't know, especially during this period of time. Could she have played Amanda Beckett? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'd be better, but I don't think you'd lose anything necessarily by swapping those leads. I don't think that either of the male leads of I Love You, Beth Cooper would work better in Can't Hardly Wait. I don't know if that's true. Is it possible that one of them could have played Charlie Corso's character? Maybe. It's
Yeah.
possible, but yeah, I don't think it's better served. No.
I think the characters are sort of built to the strong suit of the actors as they are. Like, I don't see Paul Rust being Preston. I don't think, even though Ethan Embry is kind of like a creative, he's not like a dork or anything. I mean, he's like kind of an okay guy. And I don't know if Paul Rust could pull that off. And I also don't see Ethan Embry going down that sort of nerdy road that the Dennis character is either. So yeah, I'm with you. Um, could Jennifer Love Hewitt play Beth Cooper? I don't know. I wouldn't want to see her do that.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I don't think she couldn't do it. I don't think she'd want to do it. um, but possibly.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to our poll results. We poll online every week. So again, as we say all the time, follow us on social media at Movie Throwdown Pod. Cast your vote. We put these polls out. We want to hear what you have to say. This week, it's pretty much, we know where we're going with this, so we don't need any help in determining. But the people have spoken, and it's very much what you would think it would be. So 22 votes for Can't Hardly Wait. A shocking 8 votes for I Love You, Beth Cooper. And this is most definitely an instance where I want to find out who these animals are who voted for I Love You, Beth Cooper. I actually put a follow-up question to the poll. How old are you? Nobody responded, but I think I would really like to see, I assume it's younger people who vote for I Love You, Beth Cooper. But I mean, 8 votes for that is insane to me. I'm not calling our listeners' taste into question, but I kind of am, because all respect, Beth Cooper is terrible. So, all right. Well, I mean, that's it. And I don't know if you know this, but we're going to close out the show. This is our 100th episode. Can you believe we've done 100 of these?
No, I can't.
That's really incredible. It's been a lot of fun. I mean, looking back, it's been really, really cool. So
I have enjoyed it a lot. Maybe more than the people listening to it, but I've enjoyed it very much.
If we could only get 100 listeners, that would be really amazing. But it's been a lot of fun. I look forward to doing 100 more, And next week is going to be fun. Episode 101. We're going to talk about kids in adult bodies who necessarily don't swap with someone else to get there. And we're going to put Penny Marshall's 1988 classic Big up against Gary Winnick's take on basically the same premise in a lot of ways from 2004. One of my favorite rom-coms, by the way. So I'm, again, showing my cards here. 13 going on 30. I'm really excited to bring this to the show and talk about it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I've only seen Big a few times, so I'm kind of looking forward to going back to that and getting a better sense of it. But yeah, so we're going to throw some polls up online. Again, follow us. We're Movie Throwdown Pod on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. And cast your vote. Which is a better film, Big or 13 going on 30? And help us out. We will see you then. So long.